Hi everyone, the Mature Simmer here. So in this morning to get set up to do the sorghum and the soybeans. Don't recall if I have any seeds in this seeder. I'd be very surprised if I didn't. Alright, so we do have a little bit, and also obviously a little bit of fertilizer. So I'll top everything off. Just going to make it simpler that way. Because while I am planting 2 crops, it's still a good-sized field. So let's see, we'll get seeds first, and then we'll get fertilizer. Having a bit more trouble than I would have hoped getting things filled, so I've been dancing around for quite a while, as you can see. I finally have fertilizer installed, loaded. I don't know why that word hit my head, but either way, I am now going to go get some seeds. Because our seed silo is empty. So I had gone to try to start filling, had all kinds of problems, tried to see if I could fill things from a truck, which I can't, which then required me to, at that point I was trying just to get the fertilizer topped off, so the fertilizer happened to have some in the silo, but I didn't realize until just now that the seed silo is empty. So I also disconnected the seed hawk tanks from the planting apparatus in the back, so I'm going to have to align all that and get connected. So yeah, this has turned into a much more complicated exercise, but at this point I'm going to go ahead and get some seeds, and I'm going to then get everything connected back up and get going, hopefully. Back at the farm, did about 35,000 liters of seeds, so I know that seed hawk's pretty empty. So, a lot will go in there, and the remainder I'll fill the silo. It can take 27,300, I believe. So, we'll get pulled up here, and we'll get that taken care of. There we go. So, we're going to get topped off at one point. I'll just get the truck out of the way then, and get the seed hawk filled up, and then at some point later I'll put the rest of the seeds in the silo, but that way we're not simply starting out with a gap of 10,000, which is what would have happened otherwise. So you can see I've got fertilizer full, only 218 liters of seed. So I'm gonna go ahead and now I should be able to remedy that. It was just kind of driving me crazy, is it broken? I ended up unloading the seed hawk on the field, thinking, well, maybe because it was set to wheat somehow, and the wheat icon was showing in one, it's not going to let me add seeds. But let's see. There we go. It all works when you actually have seed in the silo. Interesting. I guess I need to move a little bit further. There we go. So there's trigger points for each of the tanks. So now we can see we have 2 little brown seeds and 1 little white fertilizer. So get connected back to this, and then I'll be ready to go. Alright, so I'm not entirely sure this is worth the effort, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to plant sorghum down on this little segment. Basically, I'm gonna stop it here, because across I'm gonna have the soybeans. So I'm basically gonna do the south end of the field in sorghum, and then I'll do the remainder in soybean, the northern part. Alright, so just again trying to leave myself a bit of a gap between the potatoes and the sorghum, because obviously as I'm harvesting, I don't want any kind of corruption in between or any of that. And so again, I'll be able to tell here if I'm getting any kind of value from that early rolling, because that section is obviously rolled. So I'm kind of manually taking care of this, and then obviously we'll do the rest in a little bit more organized fashion. And it's just, I think I'm too long to go down to the south, so I'm actually trying to go across this way. It's interesting, although, yeah, maybe that's just some fertilization tracks, because I think it planted obviously over that, but it just looks a little strange. But that may have been where I had a harvester run amok, and sometimes then that leaves some things. So, well, we clearly have rocks laying there, but I think those are the piles that we knew were there. Oh, I've got a bit of lag. This could be bad. Let me turn that off. Okay. There we go. Yeah, so we've got another FM, Nickum 10, who has been, was Rented Foot's friend who was joining. So let's see. I'm not necessarily gonna do the line there. I'm gonna do it a little south, because basically I'm gonna probably want to just do it down, maybe in line here with what I can do. So we'll clean this up and we'll go across, and that'll create our northern boundary and make it kind of straight so that I can just not sure if this is going to line up appropriately in time here. I don't think it will. Well, I guess we'll find out. It may swing over. And if not, if I'm off a tiny bit, it's okay. But that will get the sorghum here. And then we'll create that northern border, and then basically I can, do what I want with the soybeans later. And, get the field planted appropriately. So we'll do the soybeans basically this, to the left on the screen here, which is the north end, and just do that all the way across. And then I think going down here and across the full bottom is going to give me the opportunity to have approximately equal levels of each. And then we'll be able to start seeing how that all impacts the pig food. Alright, so here we can set this so that we're at the edge, because the field cuts in. So as long as I'm there, I think will work, because by the time we hit that other section, yeah, we're already in, so I think we're good there, and that gives us the maximum value. And that should plant us right up to the edge. I can't zoom out anymore, but it looks like we're good. I mean, the line is snapped appropriately. If we're not, we're off by a little bit, and I don't know that the game's that accurate. So the intent certainly is to go ahead and get the pigs, get all the food planted and so forth. So yeah, I'm pretty excited at this point that we'll have everything we need, unless I've made some gross miscalculation, to supply the pig food on our own and feed the pigs directly off of our own fields. And we don't want to fool ourselves and say, hey, it's free, because we're not buying pig food. I mean, obviously we're putting seed and fertilizer into the ground, which costs money, and and it's also not inexpensive. The other challenge I'm going to have really this year is this is just going to have to be a commingled affair as far as the values of what we did between seeds and fertilizer and all the supplies in the field, because I don't have the acreage of the individual components, so I won't be able to do any division there. Now I may keep track of the fact, like what I did per crop, and still, at least know, hey, it was this amount of seeds. So at least I know for the segments I did, I know I had a big segment, a little segment, so forth. And at least I'll understand, because I've obviously never planted sorghum in this farm, so I would like to start learning about the consumption needs, and say, compared to soybeans, was this more seeds? I think the fertilizer is kind of going to be the same. We're not running precision farming yet, so there's no crop change there, and the way base game normally works with fertilizer is it just puts it down on the field. There's not any kind of variability with that. It's just the seeds that go slower or faster. So at this point, as you can see, I would say the seeds are consuming a little bit faster than the seeds are. I was looking at the two banks of seeds, so that's what was getting me a little confused. But at this point, if I'm able to get this in, which I'm hoping I should be able to get both the sorghum and the soybeans planted before the end of the day. This isn't weather dependent in any way, so if somehow rain comes, because I can see we've got clouds coming, which then can quickly turn into rain, I can still plant in the rain, and I can fertilize in the rain. It's just really the harvesting that is impacted. And once again, I won't really probably fertilize until the next day anyway. But, with the seed hawk here, obviously this is a pretty quick process compared to what we had before. So I do like that. And, I'm thinking, we got at least 2 more passes till we start hitting the island there. But if I look at the map, at this point you can see we're basically doing this segment. And again, we've got cutouts. Obviously there's potatoes here. Oh, did I turn them off? Yeah, okay. I'm not quite sure. I'm like, why am I not seeing them? So it's this, and then this will be our soybeans, and maybe there's a bit more sorghum. I don't know. I think base food requires more base food anyway, so that might not be a bad thing. But once again, a lot of it is dependent on the yield per acre, where if soybeans are a low yield but sorghum's high, or vice versa, that can all change. Just because I'm planting this same approximate acreage, I could end up with tens of thousands of liters of difference in actual crop volume. So all remains to be seen, and then the question's going to start to be, am I doing anything but growing pig food for a while still? But the benefit will be at least that we're not doing $29,000 of pig food every time. So when I turn around, I will take a look at where our pigs stand with food. I know we're just obviously 1 month ahead of when we looked yesterday, so we know they're not ready for sale to market yet, because we needed 4 months for those. So we'll now head on up this way. But it looks like we're doing pretty well as far as consumption, so I'm not really too concerned about that. Alright, so you can see we're 21 months on the pigs, but we're full on slurry and we're down to 13,000 liters, so I may need to buy at least a little bit of food. I'm certainly not going to top this off again, but what I was talking about is the base food's 50% of the value. Now that doesn't mean, because it looks like, again, it's 6,000 versus 3,200. I mean, the bars and the quantity that they can each store seem the same. But yeah, if I recall, I think soybean is a low demand crop in general, although again, without precision farming it won't matter, but I believe if you plant soybeans with precision farming, I don't know that they even require fertilizer. So I think it just becomes seed, which would be nice once we have that done. No updates on that, and that's not unexpected. Giants did talk about Kubota coming in to be available, and so hopefully maybe they'll do some sort of precision farming patch at that point and we'll be able to do things, but I'm just, again, not sure exactly what it was that needed to be patched. So I do not like when I'm getting lag when I'm at the top of something that I'm trying to create a border with, because it just puts us in a really bad spot where we could suddenly kind of not have what we want to have happen and suddenly mess up our perfect plan. Yeah, I'm thinking we're still even in that little notch near the island. I don't think we're going to cover quite all of it when we go by the next time. So, not quite sure exactly what is happening with the lag problem today. The other FM dropped off in between. He was telling us goodbye when I chatted about him. So, it's not demand on the server in that regard, but so going into just getting you up to speed on the few things that have changed. So field 11, which is up that a ways, basically I think it's up by Swedes field 12 and all the way over at the edge of the map. It was up for auction. Nobody's bidding on it, so I've kind of been a little lax in worrying about getting that actually plowed, but that's some work that's going to have to happen here at some point as well. We're definitely getting down on the map to just a handful of fields left that I have to do that with if people are coming onto the map, so that is a good thing. The one thing I did discover, though, I'm not sure if that other giant field 4, it might need to be done as well. It is limed, and I think I assumed that because of that it was ready to go, but I think it's in a state of still needing to be cultivated. So I'll have to check that if and when that comes up for auction. Alright, so I am going to go ahead and finish the sorghum, and I'll come back at the point that I'm ready to be working on some soybeans. So that may be a bit. Hopefully it'll still be today. Again, just trying to squeeze the planting in when I can. Pretty much like a real farmer, except, I've got different demands on me than they likely do. But I will see you in a bit. So I've started planting the soybeans. Just wanted to kind of get my line down, so you can see I left myself a tiny gap at that point. And I'm going to run around the edge here and, you know, figure out what I'm doing. So in essence, kind of do a headland pass, I guess. Looks like we're going to run off the field a little bit here, so we'll get that kind of cleaned up so that we don't miss that little bit. But yeah, doing pretty well. You know, so the sorghum is in, and everything, you know, worked pretty well. I had to, you know, figure out where I wanted to do, like, the border at the south end, because obviously, you know, the island was a good portion of it, but then there was the segment that really wasn't at the island, you know, that I had to leave a gap, so I basically just kind of drove that. Also on the west edge of the potato field that kind of is between the islands, I had to move over a bit because the line that we had did not align appropriately with the border of the field. Similarly to, you know, we'll see where this next row goes, if it's too high or not. And it's probably good enough, so rather than create complexity, I think I'll do this, and if I can't make it to the end of the field, that's fine. But that little segment of extra soybeans, if that kind of makes or breaks us, I guess then we've got a different issue. But I'm just not sure that it's worth the tap dancing at this point. And, you know, maybe I'll come back and add a little bit there, at least get the part done to the where the peninsula ends, but because clearly here I'm still going to have to take control in a moment, otherwise I'm just running into trees. So we'll start heading more this way. But, you know, just like with the potatoes, the best thing would be eventually, you know, to try to roll this today. There's definitely rocks all over the place, and while the yield increase isn't great, I think just leaving rocks year to year to year is going to cause a problem. So I've got a lot of stuff that needs to happen. The other thing I wanted to note is on the thumbnails, you'll have started to see kind of a new, I don't know, I guess I'll call it a new feature that I'm doing, which basically is, you know, having a calendar to show what year we're in. Again, I had talked about doing that at episode 125. I've decided to start that a bit early. So hopefully you've enjoyed that with the last episode. And this one, whoops, I actually need this to be up here. Alright, I'll have to play around and then I'll figure out where we're at. Alright, so at this point I'm moving along, just getting another pass on the north end of the field here. And obviously, you know, we're going the long way anyway, so I think I'll just keep heading in this direction as I think about it to get the soybeans in, and we'll see how that all plays out. So at this point then, in the fall, we should be looking at a harvest of the 3 crops. I'm hoping that they're going to be staggered. I'll take a look at that, you know, and show you what I mean when we get down here at the end, because there's definitely a possibility that this won't get crazy, that I'll just basically have to do 1 harvest a day, which is obviously ideal compared to, God forbid, having 3 of them all in one day. But given the longer calendar that I showed last episode that we now have on the servers in FSN. You know, it's going to be simpler. I want to get this little piece that's here. I don't know that I'm even going to notice it, but I mean, I do notice it, obviously. But so then we'll swing back around, and then we'll take a look at what everything looks like with regards to the harvest that I'm talking about. And this should now hopefully, I think I'm going to have some left there again, because yeah, it looks like it's 2 or 3 steps. Alright, so if we look at the calendar here, we've got potatoes, which hopefully we'll be able to harvest here in August. And then we've got sorghum, which hopefully will be September. And then soybeans in October. So the hope is, given that I'm planting the first day in all cases, that they progress at that pace, and then that first harvest day will be the day that I will be able to actually work on the items and get them out of the field. Now, we'll see if that's how it plays out, and if that is how everything ends up. But at this point, I'll go ahead and finish this up, because once again, this is just going to take a while, and I think you understand what I'm doing at this point, and not like you're potentially going to gain a lot from watching me run up and down this field for at least another 30 minutes. So we'll go ahead and take care of that, and then we'll see where we're at, if there's anything else I want to take care of on the farm today. So we've got the end of the soybeans here. Go ahead and get ourselves folded up, but overall did a pretty good job here. So I'm gonna get this stuff repaired up and cleaned up, and then we'll take a look at if there is anything else needed. But you can kind of see where we ended up on the numbers standpoint. You know, dipped into the seeds a bit in the second tank, but still barely half of the fertilizer done in that initial pass. Alright, so I've got this done. I'm going to go ahead, because the potato planter does not fertilize as it plants, so I'm going to go ahead and get the potatoes fertilized, so that everything at this point is at the first stage of fertilization, so that when we cycle over to tomorrow or whatever day I'm able to get to it, I can then just go ahead and fertilize the entire field. So I'm going to go ahead, get this taken care of. Obviously it's going to be a bit of a challenge to do this in a way that doesn't waste a ton of fertilizer, because obviously it's a very odd shape, and you know, just a challenge. I don't know what else to say. I'm trying to come up with some sort of zippy, brilliant statement, but I don't really have one. Obviously that, you know, that's floating over into what we planted is kind of wasted at this point, but I just would rather not have to come back and do other things. Now the good news is I can see through the potato plants. They're small enough. So as we go and kind of finish up the inside of this, I'll be able to tell where I can stop, but I'll have to be obviously looking overhead to do that. So just cycling around here, that gets us there, and again we can cut in here and There we go. Well done, I would say. And then I can just kind of go ahead and get these taken care of and get this fertilized. And then I will go ahead and roll the field where it needs to be rolled. And that is really all that I should do for the best outcome today. The only other piece I can do is I do think the slurry needs to be emptied from the pigs. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to call this a day on this episode because you know, we've covered the basics, and I'll get this done. We'll have fertilized the first level of everything, and you know, next episode I'll delve into the slurry and the rolling. So I'll see you next time.